Good vibrations.
Welcome to episode 174, and my guest today is someone who I've mentioned in one of my previous videos. I've been having some dealings with on a personal basis as well. It's welcome to Good Vibrations for the first time to Caroline Nettle.
Hi Mark, thanks so much for having me on. Really happy to be here.
No worries, from Spiritual Growth Tools. So I would describe you as part healer, part therapist, part psychic, and part past life regressionist. Would that be an accurate appraisal, or are there any parts of that you'd violently disagree with that I've got wrong?
Wow. No, I would sort of agree with all of those. I just tune into whatever the other person's energy field is giving me. So that obviously can include masses of influences going back through ancestry, past life, and of course everything that has happened this life. So yeah, I would wear those hats.
Sure, okay. Well, maybe I've just designed a new biog for you there.
Thank you very much.
So we're leaving aside current world events for the moment, although later in this chat I would like to get your take on a few of those. And we're just going to be addressing things that people can do to fortify themselves and balance themselves and just get in a good space to be able to navigate these challenging times in which we're all living. That's going to be the general tone of this. And I think your activities are highly relevant to all of that. A lot of people are finding now to be a deeply stressful and a deeply testing time. Maybe you'd just like to describe the core nature of your work, because it seems to be a combination of remote psychic healing, but also involving getting into the body of the subject as well as their consciousness. I'm sure you can explain further, much better than me, what the technique is that you use there.
Thank you. Yes, well, so I do a healing modality called BodyTalk, and what I do is intuitively tune into the part of the wisdom of the body of the other person. So we all have this wisdom. Plants do, animals do, humans do. And it's always trying to get us healthy, happy, and in harmony. So it tells you to go to the loo, run from the tiger, put clothes on, eat food, all of those things. And it does trillions and trillions and trillions of other transactions on a daily basis, hourly basis, secondly basis. I mean, really is working extremely hard to keep you in tip-top tune. So my job, if you like, is I always see myself as a bit of a translator. So I tune into that wisdom. So not Mark the personality. If I was doing a session on you, I'd be tuning into that wisdom, and I'd be saying, what is it that's keeping this body-mind complex from health and harmony? So as I said in the introduction, I can be looking at anything that has ever influenced the body-mind complex of the person sitting in front of me or sitting on the other side of the world, or animal or group of people, just whatever comes across. So for example, when your mum and dad, anyone's mum and dad, got together to create you, they will have had lots of unprocessed trauma themselves. There'll be things that have been passed down through the family. So there we've got characteristics, traits, etc. Anything that they either didn't want to look at or want to pass on to their children will be passed on to you as they create your life. So as you're in the womb, there's lots and lots of things that happen within the womb situation. Mum gets really scared, dad leaves. I mean, all sorts of stories can happen as the baby is gestating. And then when we're born, then we get influenced by church, school, politics, institutions, police, media, all sorts of things, peers, family members, all of whom are trying to get the spirit of the person who's growing, shall we say, to conform to the status quo, because that's where we humans traditionally feel safe. So by the time somebody comes to me and they've got, a really bad immune disease, or they're struggling with MS or ME or whatever it is that I'm presented with, I go in and tune into the body-mind complex and say, okay, what's going on here? What is it you want to tell me? And usually will either go into, let's say, the immune system and take out lots of family grief or family anger or, toxins or whatever it is that's stored within the body-mind complex. But equally, I can go back through your ancestry and say, oh, your great-grandfather suffered a massive feeling of a loss, which wasn't dealt with by any of the family members. So here it is in you. For some reason, you've taken it on. Let's remove that. Equally, we've got past lives. The other day I had my very first parallel life. That was really fascinating. I've never had one of those before, but the energy is a bit weird on the planet at the moment, so I'm open to anything. So if I go into a past life, the influence can be, in that lifetime you lost all your children or you were in a fire. I don't tend to deal with the past lives that we've all had that were really deliriously happy. They don't seem to leave too much of a mark on the present lifetime. But the ones where there's huge grief or rage or deceit or betrayal or anxiety or whatever it is, the reason I'm picking it up in today's person, if we say that, is that there's an influence from that lifetime that's influencing your lifetime today, which is from another lifetime when perhaps you didn't learn the lesson or you were killed before you got it or whatever. And I have an incredibly active imagination. So this job is just perfect for me. But what I tend to do is, because my life has not been an easy one, shall we say it like that, very politely, but, I suffered a lot of trauma myself. I've had to learn lots and lots of lessons, including getting sober and dealing with my own trauma, etc. So now that I'm growing into this person who is, actively healing, and I've been doing it for about 15 years now, but I can sit next to anybody's pain because I've experienced that pain myself. So I find that very often when the people come to me, a lot of my clients, should we say it like this, have been around the houses. They've been trying to find out what's wrong with them. Nobody can really tell them any answers. There's a mystery illness that's making them feel really, awful, but the traditional medicine people, the hospitals and the doctors can't seem to establish quite what's wrong. And I'll go in and find massive grief on mother's part, or, a huge betrayal, or somebody was abandoned, or, and I just seem to be able to hone in on it. So it's not to say that I'm a miracle worker or a miracle curer. And sometimes some people need an awful lot of sessions because they've really been carrying this for a long, long time. But certainly it's something where I feel that, almost want to say everybody needs this in the same way that you MOT your car every year. I think it's really good to do some sort of energy work to rid your body of those things that you don't want to be carrying. And if I kind of link that to what you also said, it's like, we are going into a new world. We are creating something. So we're breaking down what we've been living in, and leaving behind, really trying to leave behind all of our, trauma, horror, belief systems that don't serve us anymore, and so on. So now is actually a fantastic time for everybody to be looking at and working on the things that they're carrying with them that aren't serving them. And it's just really interesting because I'm also an angel reader, so I do angel readings for people. So that's more about giving them guidance about how to live a better life, whatever. But what the angels are saying to me consistently at the moment is, and they're right on schedule, this is exactly the time we need to be looking at what we're carrying that really doesn't serve us anymore. We need to be decluttering. We need to be moving out all those ancient wounds that we're carrying so that we can move into a much better world. I think I'll leave it there.
Okay, so there's a lot of purging going on, it seems, which ironically enough is what we hear viruses do. They purge toxins from the body. So interesting that seems to be going on a spiritual level. And from what you said there, you tap right back into ancestral realms, and what you do is very holistic. It's like you're accessing the Akashic records, just taking that concept for a moment. Everyone that's ever lived and everything that's ever happened, it's like this giant repository of information. And it sounds to me like you're tapping into all of that to try and get to the root of what people are experiencing.
I've never considered it like that before, but I would say possibly, yes. And it's just that because we are a living record of everything we've ever witnessed, experienced, felt, thought, I kind of just tune into that wisdom, and then I'm able to read energetically, I suppose, the people and what it is they need to get rid of. Excuse me.
Okay. Are there many practitioners of this around the world? I mean, when you contacted me, that was the first time I'd heard of what it is that you do. Is this quite a rare thing?
Well, it's interesting you should say that. It is something that's practiced in many, many countries around the world. I've only ever been the only practitioner in my town, which is interesting, apart from when I very first learned. You can actually do a degree in this in a German university. So this is, something the person that developed this system was a chiropractor. He did Reiki, he did Chinese medicine, he did all sorts of different things. And he basically cherry-picked all the best parts of it and constructed it into this modality that I do, which is called BodyTalk again. And everybody that learns, anybody can learn this. It really is something that anybody can learn, and you learn to use your intuition. And everybody has intuition. It's just a muscle that you need to exercise. And gradually, as you learn to drive, for example, you start off and you're really nervous and you're clinging onto the steering wheel, but gradually you sort of get to a point where you're doing it without thinking about it. And that's kind of what happens in the BodyTalk session. If I really want to help the client, or I'm really invested in getting them well, I can't do this. It's about me really standing out of the way and holding back my ego so that the best part of me and the best part of the person in front of me can work together to find health for the client.
And how did you discover you had a propensity towards this? Do you think that the trauma that you mentioned at the start that you experienced earlier in your life was contributing towards you eventually doing this? Do you think that was an essential thing for you to go through in order to be an effective practitioner of this? Or do you just feel it was your calling in this lifetime?
I'll say absolutely to both of those. I think obviously the childhood trauma was something I needed to go through as a soul. And I think everyone in my life that's important to me rejected me in a really big way, so that I learned to stand on my own 2 feet. So now, as I'm much, much older and I've done a lot of therapy, I'm really grateful for the upbringing I had, because it has taught me, the strength of my character and that I'm a good survivor and all of those things. And that helps me to teach other people. I do want to add a little something to that, and that's on the website, Spiritual Growth Tools, you can also find a fantastic range of detox products, and here is why. So we lived in a village that was kind of being built, and where we lived, there were some farms, and when they sprayed the farm, so I'm a 66 baby, when they sprayed the farms, I would stop breathing. So my mum would take me to the doctor and say, listen, when they spray the farms, my baby stops breathing. And the doctor was like, as they still can be, there, dear, don't be so silly. Take her home. There's nothing wrong. Well, now that we've done all the research that we've done, they were spraying DDT on our food back in the, in the 60s, which you can look into it, is a derivative of Agent Orange, because they didn't know what to do with that at the end of the war. Anyway, I don't want to be too controversial, but so within the first year of my life, I was highly toxic, and I went on and I had a childhood of asthma, allergies, real problem breathing. I nearly died a couple of times. I remember them being told to get ready to lose me because I wasn't breathing properly, and all of these things. Now, a lot of the asthma and allergies that I work with in other patients is about overprotective parents. It can be obviously toxins and everything like that. But as I went into my teenage years, obviously started smoking because I was an idiot. No, that's not true. I started smoking because, I was trying to hide my pain, because smoking is one of the best ways to not feel your feelings, and just caused myself. So I just caused myself no end of problems with, bronchitis, constant coughs, constant colds. And during this time, I was quite healthy. I was quite sporty as well. So I don't know how those two married together. But when I started doing BodyTalk, so somebody came into the office and offered me a free session, and I didn't really know what she was doing, but I had a lot of questions, and my body kind of just said, I think I need that. Because by the time we got to that stage, I was exhausted. And I mean, I needed 100 years sleep every night. It was really painful dragging myself out of bed, and my whole system had basically shut down. So I started doing Body Talk in July 2015. By October, I'd passed my exam, so I was practicing, and I happened to start in a clinic in Wokingham, where I lived at the time. And this gentleman here said, here, look, you're always coughing, try this. And he gave me 3 bottles, and I didn't know what it was. And I thought, what is this? So I looked it up online, and it looked quite good. And it was about taking heavy metals and toxins out of your body. And I ended up doing an 18-month detox with this product, because I'd done a lot of research about how toxic I was. So I smoked, I had metal fillings, I really was very, very toxic. And 18 months later, my health had drastically improved. And so what I tend to do now with clients is I try and get them to detox from heavy metals, and I take out the emotional component. So I very much do that as a 2-pronged attack on ill health, because I just think it's so important to help the body get strong, but at the same time remove all the emotional issues.
Sure. And what are the best tips for detoxing from heavy metal?
So I sell this product called Pure Body. It's a natural zeolite. It is basically, you find it in nature everywhere. They put it on things like Fukushima, on oil spills. It's been used for many, many years in healthcare for things like dysentery and stuff like that. But basically the one I sell is a cage, and it's negatively charged, and all heavy metals, toxins, and if we want to talk about the thing that sounds like Maxine, there's a lot of heavy metals in those, so this could be quite a good product if you're frightened about that. Anyway, and it goes around the body, and I always think it's a bit like Pac-Man, so it just circles around the body, and when it comes across a heavy metal or a toxin, it sucks it into the empty cage that we've made empty because we've processed that through. And then you basically excrete it from the body with no chance of that toxin being released, because a lot of the traditional ways of detoxing your body can leave you feeling really revolting as you are getting the heavy metals and toxins out of your body. So one of the products that I sell is called Pure Body, and that is for literally detoxing the gut, and that is where a lot of immune system issues start. So any of your arthritises, allergies, even so much as cancer, anything like that, that usually starts with a weakness in the gut. And then we sell Pure Body Extra, which is a spray, which is much, much smaller. It's 100 times more effective. You spray it into your mouth. It's a lot easier to use, but that then travels all around the body to anywhere where water can get to in the body. So a lot of the toxins love to go into your brain. They love to go into your breast tissue, anywhere where there's fat. And on the website, there's just so much information, because I think and lots of testimonials of how this product has really, really helped people. So I don't tend to sell things that I don't wholeheartedly recommend. So there's masses and massive of information, and I'm quite happy to talk to anyone who has any questions about that.
Just going back to the Body Talk stuff, you make a lot of past life regressions and healing traumas that have been brought through from past lives. Do you think everyone has lived before? Has everyone undergone other lives?
The answer to that is most probably no, but I'm not sure. But there's definitely what I would call newer spirits that come onto the planet and, struggle a little bit, because it's really dark. It's heavy energy here on Earth School. They say it's one of the hardest lessons to learn. Someone like me who's been on the planet many, 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 many lifetimes, we know what to expect. We know what the lessons are going to be. They say the people that struggle with really challenging lives are generally the people that have been here a long time, because they've agreed to a harder lesson, because they've maybe done all the easier ones. That's my opinion. That doesn't necessarily have to be true. But I've definitely met some children who can really struggle with the density of the energy, not understanding people being, dishonest or, behaving in a way that's not kind, who the newer souls tend to really like animals and birds and nature rather than people, because human beings can be really, really unkind, and a lot of people, so I would say the majority of the population probably has been here before, but then you've got to take into consideration other planets and have people had lifetimes on those planets and come down here, to be here at this time. I'm super excited to be here myself. I think it's a real privilege to be around, to be able to help people at this ridiculously crazy time, but that excites me a lot. And I'm really looking forward to what's coming. But yeah, I think the majority of humans probably have been here before, but there is a new wave of newer spirits that are really struggling with the energies.
And what do you feel is the key to earning your passport out of this place and not having to come back around on the karmic wheel again? Is it simply a case of learning a whole load of lessons, and once you've ticked off that list, then you can progress? Or do you think there's more to it than that?
Wow, that's a good question. So I would say that if you're still learning lessons, then you're still supposed to be here. And once we've learned as much of the lessons as we're prepared to learn, or all the lessons this lifetime, for example, then I think that's when we can go home. I call it home. However, I'm really confused by the word karma. Very different cultures have different meanings for it. I certainly think that a soul is an expression of source, and therefore we come down here to experience all the different aspects of, existence. So that could be happiness, joy, love, and hatred, violence, jealousy, and, not necessarily in one lifetime. So I think we're all different sparks of source, learning different lessons, but the whole of source is learning what it needs to learn. And a kind of a twist on that is I really believe that as I heal myself, I'm healing the planet. Now, that doesn't mean to say that I'm really special and different. I don't mean that at all. But as we collectively heal our trauma and we move through from fear into love, that, of course, is helping the ascension of the whole rather than just me, although I benefit from that, obviously, because it's much nicer to live in love than it is in fear. So there's a really strong emphasis in my work of helping people as much as possible to get out of the fear, which is a very small, restrictive, painful life, and move into the love, which is expansive and, loving, and what we're trying to create, I hope, for the world that's coming.
Well, this place is one hell of a school at the moment for people to gain experiences and learn lessons with all the madness that's going on. And you're someone who's also been keeping their ear to the ground in terms of current events. I know you're very clued up on stuff that's going on. Not the mainstream media's official account of things. We all know what that has to say. But what's your overall stance on the scamdemic, as I think you'd probably agree that it is one, and what it's really being brought in to achieve, just to get your perspective on that?
Wow. Well, I definitely think there are many, many question marks about the mainstream narrative. I think it's more about taking away our rights than keeping us healthy, because nowhere on mainstream media have I seen eat more vegetables, get outside, stop worrying, do lots of exercise, the things that we know, which our common sense knows are good for us. It's like take a vaccine and, take some pills and stay indoors and don't hug. Hugging is one of the healthiest things that you can do. So there's definitely a very huge question mark in my mind about what I'm being told. And this is, the same media that told me that Jimmy Savile was fine, that there wasn't any problem with JFK's murder. This 9/11 was, as it was instead of as it actually was, which was very, very different story. So I'm really I have a very long-standing, I think I came out of the womb not believing in mainstream media, politics, police, church, institutions. And this time for me is very interesting because it's like, oh, yeah, it looks like my cynicism and my lack of belief in those bodies is finally coming true. So for me, a lot of people are asking me, should I take the vaccination, for example? And I'm saying, I can't make that decision for you. You have to do your own research. And I really do believe that this time is about, what do you actually believe? Using your own discernment. There is so much research out there that you can take a look at if you want to. And then there's the school of thought, which is a little bit different from mine, but, if I don't believe the vaccination can harm me, then it can't. If I do believe the vaccination will harm me, then it will. Now, I don't subscribe to that point of view, but I am hearing it a lot in some of the spiritual communities. So that's just a different thing to consider. But for me personally, I can't wait for it all to dissolve. And I think if you sort of like looked at me like a bar of rock, I'd have justice, truth, and integrity running through me. I think for me, my life has always been about that's not true. I can't tell you what the truth is, but that's not true for me. And right here, right now, I'm sitting looking at a very bizarre chain of events. But let me tell you what I've heard this morning. So I heard that President Trump was dead, which I don't believe. I heard that he's already been inaugurated, which okay, maybe that's true. I don't know. I've heard that Biden's going to get in. I've heard that Biden's not going to get in. And it's just a little crazy making. My opinion is that good will win, whatever that looks like. And I think that is happening. What about you, Mark?
Well, I made a video this last weekend talking about all these pundits that are out there saying, oh, this is going to happen and watch out for this next Tuesday and watch out for this on the 17th. And every one of them will insist that they're right. And they'll say, you can trust us, I guarantee this is going to happen. And that will conflict with what the next man is saying, which is a direct reversal of what they've just said. You just expressed it there. People are saying Trump is dead. People are saying that Biden's going to be inaugurated. Other people are saying Biden's dead and Trump's going to get re-elected or re-inaugurated. And every one of these will insist that they've got the truth. Now, they can't all be right. So either one of them's right and everybody else is wrong, or they're all wrong. And we're just drowning in opinion and speculation and detail and dates and names and times and all this stuff at the moment. And I just don't know how any human mind can make any sense of what's happening at the moment. It just turns your brain into scrambled egg. So I'm having to just detach myself from it, keeping an interested eye on significant developments as far as I can discern the truth in all of that. But other than that, just watching and observing, because I think we've reached the point where we can't do a lot more than that in these days ahead.
Well, to me, the term gaslighting, now I have to say that was quite a new term to me. I didn't know what it meant when I first heard everybody talking, but it's a massive form of gaslighting. But here's kind of how I react to this. So I saw that two main supermarkets in the UK, this was on the BBC, so of course it's true, but two main supermarkets in the UK, Morrison's and Sainsbury's, aren't going to let people in without a mask unless they've got a good, a condition that says that they don't have to wear them. I have one of those conditions, but I don't want to go through the rigmarole of explaining myself every time. So what do? Okay, I'm just not going to shop there. I'll take my business elsewhere. Now, it's not a massive stand in the face of, mass domination, but at the same time it's like I don't want the trouble of having to go through that rigmarole of having to explain that I've got a condition and I don't want to wear a mask because of it. I don't want that, so I'm going to just take my business elsewhere. And I think sometimes it's about the path of least resistance. I'm still not going to wear my mask because I have a condition and I don't see why I need to explain that to anyone, but I'm going to take action that makes it easier for me to live my life the way I want to. And I feel that sometimes my frustration with people that don't seem to be seeing the other point of view has shifted. I really was getting frustrated and saying, why isn't anyone waking up? But actually, that's not my job. My job is to live my life with my side of the street clean and to live it in integrity and with value. So if my opinion is that, I can't wear a mask, it makes me unable to breathe, and I don't particularly enjoy that. But that doesn't mean to say that you're not supposed to wear a mask or you can't choose to wear a mask. It's none of my business what other people do. And I think what this pandemic is showing me is that we have been so royally divided. And I had a conversation with a friend of mine, and I said, surely our friendship means a little bit more than a difference of opinion. And he kind of went, yeah, okay. And I said, great. Now ring me on the 22nd of January. So I'm convinced there's going to be a massive change. And, whatever I think doesn't really matter. But it's like I can't understand how families have been divided and best friends are not talking because of two people in a country I don't live in. I know it's really, really important times, but let's get everything into perspective. Once this is all blown over and everything, we're still going to have the same family and we're still going to have to talk. So I think this is about balance and compromise, and maybe not telling everyone your opinion all the time, and maybe not having to be right. This is about living in integrity and, walking your talk. So whatever that means, and, so many people say to me, oh, I'm not talking to anyone. They all think I'm bonkers. I'm suffering exactly the same thing. It's hard. But I kind of know that that's going to be over someday. And then those are the people who are probably going to come and say, okay, Caroline, what do I do now? And I could be really like, well, I'm not going to help you because you made me look a fool. Or what I think is more spiritually important is to turn around and say, okay, here's what I know. Here's what I can help you with. Because we want to create a world where everybody's included. And right now it's black or white. And in this new world, I want everybody to be included. So the only way we're going to do that is by living our lives in a way that doesn't throw judgment and hatred and, all these trolls. I would love to sit in a room with them and have a conversation and see what came up. But anyway, I don't know how you feel about that. But for me, it's just, we need to step back a bit from all this hatred and see that everybody is just a human. Everybody's in fear, and perhaps that's how their fear is manifesting. And we need to find some love and some harmony. Otherwise, we're going to be stuck in this for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think you made a reference there to the fact that everyone's got a role to play, and we just have to recognise what our contribution is to be in this process. So what you do, your practice, is not something I feel I'm cut out for. But I do my thing. I make my videos and I do my presentations and I write my books, and that's my contribution. Then somebody else would say they couldn't do either of those things, but maybe they're better at something else. Boots on the ground activism, maybe. Or maybe they're a medical expert that can speak out against all the bad science that we're getting. Or maybe they're a lawyer and they understand common law and they can bring something to bear in that regard. So everyone's got a contribution. Everyone's got something to offer in this. And that's all part of our personal development, I guess, our soul's journey. The circumstances we're all living in is helping us all to grow and evolve and learn the lessons that we need to. And like I said before, it's a hell of a schoolhouse right now, isn't it?
It is. And, some of the roles may not be as, I was going to use the word glamorous. I don't know that my role is glamorous, but they may not be as big as the ones that you've mentioned there. They may just being someone who keeps the family together, or someone who earns the money to put a roof over the family's head, or somebody who grows the food, or somebody who mends the broken bones, or, it really isn't about, I feel like we're all being called to do what we love. I couldn't do this work if I didn't love it, because it's really hard sometimes. Some of the people that come to me and some of their stories are heartbreaking, but I think I was given this personality and this way of looking at the world so that I could sit with people like that, you know what I mean? But like you say, for somebody else, they might want to look after butterflies, or it really doesn't matter what it is, like you say, because as we go forward into what we're going to create, we will need everybody. We can't just have, those that stood up and told everyone what was wrong with the world. We also need people who can create something better.
And so you're feeling generally optimistic about the near future and how things are going to pan out? And if you are, is that as a result of looking around you and seeing things that are happening? Is that giving you optimism, or are you naturally inclined towards being optimistic and hopeful, or is there another reason for it?
So it's really funny you should say that, because when I look back, I mean, I have suffered from horrendous depression this lifetime, probably because of what I went through and what I brought with me and all of those things. I'm not blaming anyone, and even when I was really, really depressed, I knew that something better was coming. And I once sat at the feet of Satish Kumar, who is just the most beautiful human being. And he ran Resurgence, which is a magazine for many, many years. He's retired now. He's in his 70s. But this was way before all of this. And he just asked the question. He said, how many people at this moment in time are actively committing war or involved in warring? And we were all like, at the time, we've always been, well, in England anyway, there was the Cold War when I was growing up, and then there was the war against Afghanistan. There's always been some kind of war. It's funny how that the deep state love war. But anyway, and so we were all sort of like looking at each other going, it must be millions. He said, I reckon probably 200,000 people out of about 7.5 billion. What is everyone else doing? They're taking their kids to school. They're growing their vegetables in the back garden. They're doing their shopping. They're getting on with it. So it's almost as if we're in exactly the same situation now. We think that those in power have massive control, but actually it's we, the people, that have, I feel, the most amount of power. So why am I an optimist? I don't know. I have this, honestly, it's bubbling up inside of me. I'm so excited that finally, I think when I was growing up, I was just so overwhelmed and depressed that nobody else cared about the planet and the animals. And, I was probably a bit of a nightmare. I used to beat you up with my opinion, and I was so convinced that mankind was destroying this home that I lived on, and I loved it with a passion. And then I grew up, and now it's so beautiful, this planet that we live on, and there's so many unbelievably good people. And this pandemic is really challenging me because not enough people are waking up to see that that's true. And I spent a lot of time in this pandemic going, why won't they wake up? That's not my job. My job now is to really appreciate, this planet, this life, help other people to get from the place of crippling illness to a place where they can create something brilliant. And I never believed that we could do it because the patriarchy, and I'm using that term very lightly for, those people that have been controlling this earth, but it feels like it's breaking, and it will be really awful, I think, for a few months, maybe even years. I don't know, as they, the tail lashes out as they move through it. But what's coming the other side, I think, is going to be amazing. And I also interviewed Diana Cooper on my radio show, and she wrote a book that was 2012 to 2032. And in that book, I remember reading this years ago, and in that book she said it's going to be a bit rocky for those 20 years when we're moving from dark to light, basically, fear to love. And I interviewed her with January 9, late last year, in December, I think it was. And I was just desperate to ask her. So I said, so how are we doing? She said, I think we're ahead of schedule. That gave me so much hope. So whilst it looks really bleak, I think it looks really scary. I'm not someone, I haven't watched the news for about 10 years. I don't read newspapers anymore. I'm not involved in that in any way. But of course I hear it because it comes onto the platforms that I do watch. But I just feel so excited. I can't explain why, but something better is coming. It literally, I can't put, it's just inside of me and I know it. And I think there's a wonderful lady called Little Grandmother, and she says we are the ones we've been waiting for. And I truly believe that. It's up to us, but we can do it because there's enough of us. And look at how amazing it is. Since last March, think how many people have woken up since last March. So they were trying to clamp our spirit and all of that stuff that they've been trying to do. And yet look at how many millions of people are watching you, for example, and I'm not saying they weren't watching you before, but Charlie Freak and all these others that have been, you know, a bastion of light in the darkness. But there's many others that have also come. So I don't know, just feels really exciting to me. I don't know if you agree with that, but that's how I feel.
Well, I hear all of that, and it all sounds good, all apart from the bit where we've got some rocky years ahead. I was hoping we were over the worst by now. Maybe we are, if we are ahead of schedule. But yeah, I can get with all of that. All right, well, great. Do you just want to let people know where they can reach you online and get hold of your services if they'd like to avail themselves of those, and where they can get hold of the Zeolite product and all that good stuff?
Yeah, thanks, Mark, for the opportunity. So my website is spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk. That's spiritualgrowthtools.co.uk. So on there you'll find BodyTalk. I do angel readings. We've got detox products. We've got some wonderful natural beauty products, body products. I do meditation, sacred geometry jewelry, lots of good things. And then if I can also do a little plug for Wild Nettle Gardens, is a project that I'm setting up. I'm hoping to move to Bristol and find some land to rent so that I can set up a market garden doing fruit, vegetables, salad, medicinal herbs, all sorts of good things. I want to plant a food forest and set up a care farm to help people with PTSD, because that's something I know very well. So if you could follow me, I don't know if it's worth following anyone on Facebook anymore. That might not be around for much longer. But anyway, if you can, connect with me in any way if you'd like to get involved, or if you just want to follow along, see what we're doing. So that's how you can get hold of me. Thanks very much for listening.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming on today.
This is just for fun.
I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up vibrations. I'm picking up vibrations.